In the global culinary landscape, few foods have experienced a meteoric rise quite like the avocado. Once a niche item, it has transformed into a symbol of healthy living and modern cuisine, gracing tables from California to Copenhagen. This unprecedented surge in popularity has created a multi-billion-dollar industry, often dubbed green gold. Yet, beneath its creamy, desirable facade, this golden era conceals a darker, more complex story. The avocado's journey from tree to table is increasingly fraught with conflict, environmental devastation, and the shadow of organized crime. The financial trajectory of the avocado market is nothing short of explosive. Over the past 2 decades, its global trade value has soared. According to reports from the USDA and market analysts, the demand in key markets like the United States and Europe has seen double-digit growth year after year. This isn't just a trend, it's a fundamental shift in consumer habits, driven by health consciousness and social media influence. The economic allure of this fruit has become irresistible, creating immense pressure on traditional agricultural regions. At the heart of this global avocado boom lies Michoacán, Mexico. This fertile state is the world's leading producer, accounting for a significant portion of international supply. Its unique climate and rich volcanic soil provide ideal growing conditions for the Hass avocado, the dominant variety. For generations, avocado farming here was a humble livelihood, but the recent market explosion has transformed it into an incredibly lucrative enterprise. This prosperity, however, brought with it an unwelcome and insidious element: organized crime, eager to claim a piece of the burgeoning profits. For decades, drug cartels in Mexico generated immense wealth from narcotics trafficking. However, as law enforcement pressures mounted and profit margins fluctuated, these criminal organizations began diversifying their portfolios. The avocado industry, with its stable demand and high export value, presented a new, less risky, and highly profitable avenue for illicit income. Reports from various security analysts and local journalists detail this strategic shift, highlighting the cartel's move into a broader range of extortion, kidnapping, and control over legitimate businesses. The most pervasive method of cartel infiltration is extortion. Farmers, packers, and distributors in Michoacán are routinely forced to pay protection monies to various criminal groups, often identified as factions of major cartels. According to testimonies gathered by human rights organizations and local news outlets, these payments are a non-negotiable cost of doing business. Refusal can lead to violence, property destruction, or even death. This system effectively siphons off a significant portion of the industry's profits, funneling them directly into cartel coffers. Beyond direct extortion, cartels seek to control the entire avocado supply chain. This means dictating who can harvest, who can pack, and who can transport the fruit. By imposing their own prices on farmers, and then controlling the sale to larger distributors, they manipulate the market at every stage. A report by the Mexican National Security Council noted that this comprehensive control allows cartels to launder money and solidify their power, effectively turning a legitimate industry into a front for illicit operations. This stifles competition and entrenches criminal dominance. Another grim tactic employed by cartels is the forced acquisition of land. Farmers who refuse to cooperate, or whose land is strategically valuable, are often driven from their homes and properties through intimidation and violence. Land registries, according to local journalists, show suspicious patterns of ownership transfers in areas vital for avocado cultivation. This displacement of indigenous communities and small landholders not only consolidates cartel control but also fuels widespread social instability, fracturing the fabric of rural Michoacán. The shift towards avocados highlights a strategic calculation by criminal groups. While drug trafficking carries severe penalties and intense international scrutiny, involvement in the agricultural sector often operates in a gray area, making it harder for authorities to prosecute. As a comparative analysis by a security think tank suggested, that legal's front of avocado farming allows for easier money laundering and less direct confrontation with federal forces, creating a perverse incentive for cartels to invest heavily in this seemingly legitimate enterprise. the lines between legal and illegal blur significantly. The surge in avocado demand isn't just a boon for cartels, it's also a disaster for the environment. Mycokan's pine and fir forests, crucial for biodiversity and climate regulation, are rapidly disappearing. Satellite imagery analyzed by environmental monitoring groups confirms widespread deforestation, often carried out illegally to make way for new avocado orchards. These forests are vital watersheds, and their destruction has cascading effects on the local ecosystem and the broader regional climate, fundamentally altering the natural balance. Avocados are notoriously thirsty crops. A single kilogram of avocados requires hundreds, if not thousands, of liters of water to grow. This intensive water demand places an immense strain on local water resources, particularly in a region already vulnerable to drought and climate change. A study published in an environmental science journal highlighted that avocado cultivation consumes significantly more water per kilogram than many other staple crops, exacerbating existing water scarcity issues for communities and indigenous groups. The consequences for local communities are severe. Reports from community leaders and non-governmental organizations detail how water is increasingly diverted from residential use and subsistence farming to supply commercial avocado orchards. Wells run dry, access to potable water becomes a daily struggle, and traditional agricultural practices that have sustained families for generations are rendered unsustainable. This creates a desperate situation for residents, who often feel powerless against the combined forces of economic pressure and organized crime. Compounding the environmental crisis is the heavy reliance on pesticides and chemical fertilizers in industrial avocado farming. To maximize yields and protect against pests, large quantities of agrochemicals are applied, often without proper regulation or oversight, especially in areas controlled by cartels. Environmental watchdogs have documented instances of runoff contaminating local rivers and groundwater, posing serious health risks to farm workers and nearby communities. This pollution further degrades the ecosystem, impacting everything from aquatic life to human health. The environmental strain caused by avocado cultivation is further amplified by the accelerating impacts of climate change. Mycokan, like many agricultural regions, is experiencing more extreme weather patterns, including prolonged droughts and intense rainfall. These shifts make the excessive water consumption of avocado farms even more critical and the deforestation more devastating. Environmental scientists warn that continued destruction of forests and depletion of water sources will create a vicious cycle, making the region increasingly vulnerable to ecological collapse. Caught between the overwhelming demand of the global market and the brutal efficiency of organized crime, traditional farmers face an impossible choice. Many are either coerced into selling their land, becoming de facto employees of cartel-controlled operations, or abandoning their livelihoods entirely. Those who resist face dire consequences, including threats, violence, and displacement. The economic promise of green gold has turned into a curse for countless families who once proudly cultivated their land, now living under constant fear and insecurity. As government protection often proved insufficient or compromised, local communities began to organize. Faced with unrelenting cartel violence and extortion, farmers and residents in Mycokan formed the auto-defenses or self-defense groups. These armed vigilante forces emerged out of desperation, vowing to protect their families, their land, and their way of life. The rise of these groups, according to security experts, is a direct reflection of the state's failure to provide basic security and uphold the rule of law in vast swathes of the region. These farmers, many of whom had never handled a weapon before, now patrol their lands with rifles. They establish checkpoints, gather intelligence, and confront cartel members directly. Interviews conducted by investigative journalists with members of these groups reveal a fierce determination to defend what is theirs, despite the immense personal risk. They describe a sense of abandonment by federal authorities, forcing them to become their own protectors in a region where the lines between civilian and combatant have become tragically blurred, fueled by the fight for their livelihoods. The conflict between cartels and self-defense groups is violent and frequently deadly. Reports from independent human rights monitors document numerous clashes, ambushes, and targeted assassinations. Both sides suffer casualties, and civilians are often caught in the crossfire. This constant state of low-intensity conflict has turned parts of Maikoken into a war zone, disrupting daily life, forcing schools to close, and further isolating communities already struggling. The avocado, once a symbol of health, has become a symbol of bloodshed. The human cost of the green gold crisis is staggering. Local NGOs and victim support groups speak of families torn apart by violence, disappearances, and a pervasive atmosphere of fear. For many farmers, the choice is stark: pay extortion, abandon their land, or fight and risk everything. The price of a popular fruit now often includes a hidden tariff of human suffering, paid by those at the very beginning of the supply chain. This unseen burden challenges the ethical conscience of global consumers and the integrity of international markets. The Mexican government has acknowledged the cartel's grip on the avocado industry. Various strategies have been deployed, including increased military presence and targeted operations against criminal leaders. However, these efforts often face significant challenges. Reports from security analysts suggest that corruption within local and state institutions, combined with the cartel's deep roots in the communities, make effective intervention incredibly difficult. The sheer economic power of the cartels also allows them to quickly adapt to enforcement efforts, perpetuating the cycle of violence. The insatiable demand for avocados in the United States, Maikoken's largest export market, inadvertently fuels the crisis. American consumers, seeking healthy and versatile ingredients, often remain unaware of the violent and environmentally destructive origins of their fruit. As the U.S. market continues to expand, so too does the incentive for cartels to strengthen their control over production and export routes. This direct link makes the U.S. consumer a powerful, albeit often unwitting, player in the ongoing avocado crisis, raising questions about ethical consumption. In an attempt to address these concerns, some organizations and retailers are pushing for greater traceability and ethical certification programs for avocados. Initiatives aim to ensure that avocados are sourced from farms free of cartel influence and environmentally destructive practices. However, according to reports by agricultural watchdogs, implementing and verifying these certifications in regions plagued by organized crime is incredibly complex and challenging. The opacity of the supply chain often allows illicitly produced avocados to blend with legitimate ones, making true oversight difficult. As consumers, our choices have power. Understanding the origins of our food and demanding transparency from retailers can put pressure on the industry to adopt more ethical and sustainable practices. While individual actions may seem small, collective awareness and preference for certified products can influence market dynamics. Investigative journalists suggest that a more informed consumer base is crucial in compelling corporations and governments to address the complex humanitarian and environmental issues embedded within the global avocado trade, ensuring a more responsible food system. The future of avocado farming in Maikoken remains uncertain. The financial incentives are too great for cartels to abandon their lucrative enterprise, and the need for self-defense among farmers remains pressing. Experts predict that without robust government intervention, sustained international pressure, and a fundamental shift in market dynamics, the conflict and environmental degradation will only intensify. The challenge lies in dismantling the criminal structures while simultaneously supporting the legitimate farmers and restoring ecological balance, a task that requires multifaceted global cooperation. While Maikoken is the epicenter, the implications of the green gold crisis extend globally. The methods employed by cartels in avocado production are now being replicated in other agricultural sectors in Mexico and beyond, as criminal organizations seek to diversify their income streams further. This pattern of infiltration into legitimate industries poses a significant threat to global food security and economic stability. Reports from international crime organizations warn that this model could spread, impacting various food commodities worldwide. The battle over water in Maikoken serves as a stark warning for other regions facing similar agricultural booms and environmental pressures. As climate change intensifies and water becomes an even scarcer resource, conflicts over its control are likely to escalate. The avocado crisis highlights how essential natural resources, combined with high-value commodities, can become flashpoints for violence and exploitation. Environmental activists predict that water wars will become an increasingly common phenomenon unless sustainable practices and equitable resource distribution are prioritized. For many, the convenience of purchasing avocados from local supermarkets obscures the complex and often brutal reality of their origin. The ease with which we access this popular fruit belies the environmental devastation, the forced displacement of farmers, and the violent grip of criminal organizations in its production zones. This documentary seeks to peel back that comfortable veneer, revealing the hidden costs embedded within each perfectly ripe avocado. It's a stark reminder that global consumption habits have profound and far-reaching consequences. Every avocado carries not just its nutritional value, but the weight of this crisis. It represents the intricate web of global economics, environmental fragility, and organized crime. The narrative of the avocado is a microcosm of larger challenges facing our interconnected world: how rapid economic growth, unchecked demand, and a lack of regulation can empower destructive forces. This investigation aims to foster a deeper understanding of the choices we make as consumers and the systemic issues that demand our collective attention and action for a more just and sustainable future. Despite the grim realities, there are ongoing efforts to counter the crisis. Some international organizations are working to empower local communities with legal and security training. Activists continue to raise awareness, and some legitimate businesses are investing in projects that support farmers directly and promote sustainable, cartel-free practices. The path to resolution is long and complex, but the resilience of the farmers and the growing global awareness offer a glimmer of hope that the green gold can eventually be harvested without a trail of destruction. Ultimately, the green gold crisis is a call to action. It urges us to look beyond the surface of our everyday commodities and confront the uncomfortable truths of their production. It challenges governments to strengthen governance, corporations to uphold ethical sourcing, and consumers to demand accountability. Only through a concerted, multi-pronged effort can the cycle of violence and environmental degradation be broken, transforming the avocado from a symbol of crisis into one of sustainable prosperity for the communities that cultivate it. Let's consider the journey of a single avocado from the fertile, yet troubled, soils of Mycocan. It's picked by a farmer living under the constant threat of extortion, perhaps even a member of a self-defense group. It travels through roads controlled by criminal checkpoints, its price inflated by illicit taxes. It uses water diverted from a thirsty community, grown on land cleared from a vital forest. This fruit, a symbol of wellness, carries with it the heavy burden of conflict, environmental exploitation, and human rights abuses, a stark reality often overlooked. The cartel's shift to avocados illustrates a calculated evolution in their business model. They've identified a product with high global demand and relatively low risk compared to drug trafficking, allowing them to diversify and legitimize their earnings. Experts on organized crime highlight that this type of infiltration into agriculture represents a sophisticated expansion, moving beyond traditional illicit trades into the very fabric of the global food system. This makes them far more difficult to dislodge, as their operations are intertwined with the economy. The original farmers, who nurtured these lands for generations, find their traditional livelihoods utterly disrupted. Many are forced to choose between poverty and complicity with cartels. Reports from local social workers detail the psychological toll of this constant threat, leading to mental health crises, family breakdown, and widespread displacement. The avocado boom has ironically impoverished many of those closest to its source, stripping them of autonomy and dignity, turning a source of pride into a source of fear and struggle. This situation presents a stark paradox: a fruit celebrated for its health benefits and sustainability in affluent nations is produced through violent and unsustainable means in its origin country. This disconnect between consumer perception and production reality is a critical point of concern. Food ethicists argue that true sustainability must encompass not only environmental factors but also social justice and human rights throughout the supply chain. The avocado stands as a potent symbol of this global food paradox, challenging our understanding of ethical consumption. International trade agreements and regulations play a significant role in this crisis. The demand for Mexican avocados has been facilitated by free trade agreements, boosting exports but without robust mechanisms to address the social and environmental consequences. Trade economists suggest that while these agreements promote economic growth, they can also inadvertently create vulnerabilities that criminal organizations exploit. Stronger international cooperation on security, human rights, and environmental protection must accompany trade liberalization. Amidst the violence and despair, the human spirit of resistance shines through. The farmers who choose to stand their ground, forming self-defense groups, embody incredible courage. They are not merely fighting for their crops, but for their heritage, their identity, and the very right to exist peacefully on their ancestral lands. Their stories, though often overshadowed by the wider narrative of cartel violence, are a powerful testament to resilience in the face of overwhelming odds, reminding us of the profound human cost of our globalized desires. The green gold crisis is not just Mexico's problem, it is a shared global responsibility. The choices made by consumers in distant lands, the policies enacted by international bodies, and the actions of governments and corporations all contribute to its complexity. Moving forward requires a concerted effort to support sustainable farming practices, dismantle criminal networks, protect human rights, and restore environmental integrity. Only then can the avocado truly become a symbol of healthy living, free from the stains of violence and destruction.